we're going to continue our interviews now, and we're joined by someone who I think everyone probably up here at Caucus Weekend knows, Reverend Jacques DeGraff. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You can hold that up close to you too. We actually have our own mics too.
Come on, you're a pro at this. Hold up that mic. Jacques DeGraff.
It's great to be here, and it's a time of change in New York, or potential for change.
A potential.
Because in many ways, this is the same old, if you come from as far back as I do. This is my 35th weekend, going back to 1974.
And you're only 42.
we have birthday in the same month and 10 days apart. So.
That's right.
Great.
But one of the things that you say is a lot of people are walking around with their chest puffed out like they did something. The FBI did something.
Wow,
Okay.
that's true.
But
Pre-Barat did something.
I'm just saying that it's to be done. It hasn't been done yet. And I'm delighted that Carl Heastie, a person of color, is there. But the question is now, what are you going to do? And not what you're going to say you're going to do, because there's a reality of those three men in the room that has in the past killed dreams and smashed expectations. So the question is, when you're confronted with the hard choices that are ahead, are you going to remember where you came from and what you said you were going to do?
That's fair. I know last year the big issue you were up here pushing for was scaffold reform. As an advocate for MWBEs. A lot of small construction companies were really being hurt by the rising insurance premiums, and the insurance companies were saying it was because of the scaffold law. You know, clearly no change happened. Are you optimistic at all that there could be change this year?
As a reverend, I'm in the hope business. Okay?
Yes.
But candidly, we're looking for signs of change. We think that ethics reform has got to be at the top of the list. And if it is in fact the case that only the previous speaker was standing in the way, well, there's a new speaker. And we have new expectations, and we think that ethics reform includes tort reform. It's not just scaffold reform, but it's the broader issue of tort reform. Our particular interest is scaffold reform. It's a statewide interest. It's dire, the need in the African American, the Latino business community in particular. But there are small businesses across the state who are being crushed by these onerous fees. So the question is, do they have the temerity, do they have the guts to stand up to the trial lawyers and make a difference? Okay, they can be new speaker. The question is, but are you going to stand up?
And that meaning that the new speaker then has to understand that the issues that were brought to him as a member of the assembly, which he knows that he couldn't move forward, even though he might have told, look, Jack, I understand, but I got these other things on the, you know what I'm talking about, what deals, and he'll tell you, let's see if I can get to it. So now you have a person who understands the issue. I don't want to put this on Carl Heastie unduly, but the fact is that he doesn't, the learning curve is, he's already learned. He's a learned person about the issues that are impacting small businesses, minority small businesses throughout the state, women-owned businesses, all these things that are, other people need to be actually lobbied for. They have to be activists come and have to pound them and do sit-ins. Do they still do sit-ins? I don't know. I forgot. I remember I'm aging myself here. But the point is, there's no doubt that Carl Heastie knows what the issues are. He knows what the specifics about them. Do you expect this to be put on a fast track? For example, now what Michael was asking about. Do you expect it to be put on a fast track within the context of a person who understands finance, as Carl Heastie does?
Well, we have not yet seen those indications, to be candid. The hope is that over this legislative, you only have one first session. And so the question is, what is going to be your foundation, the premise upon which you're going to rest your speakership? Okay, and so will you have the integrity and the character to follow it through? Now, whether it happens as a piece of legislation or as a part of the budget, I'm going to give him the wiggle room to finesse this, but it's the outcome that we're concerned with. At the end of this session, we're going to be asking, what did you accomplish that was different than the past? And so what are the issues? When they get in that room, what they do is, these are things I must have. And then the rest of that stuff, and then when we go out, you talk about the things that you got. The question is, when you say about what you must have, is ethics something that's only the governor's concern, or is it all of our concern? And then the ethics is not just something that's pie in the sky. It has some tangible results that are measurable, quantifiable, and identifiable. And we're going to be sitting and watching and coming up here to get those results.
I was listening. I was at the Thomas Annapolis labor breakfast this morning, And one of the speakers, it was in honor of Carl Heastie, and after Carl Heastie, the person he had speaking at the end was Jose Rivera. You know Jose Rivera from the Bronx Assembly, who was a city councilman. Jose said something, he mentioned Rosa Parks, he mentioned Dr. King, but then he surprised me, as only Jose can do, and he mentioned, we're not gonna do, and you will take appreciation of this, and those who are looking at us, the City and State TV streaming live, Jack, he said, we're not going to do to Carl Heastie what we did to David Dinkins. We didn't give him a chance to be a good mayor. We abandoned him after we elected him. And that was powerful for me. Now, we were there. We've lived long enough. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So is there a chance that there be too much demanded of Carl Heastie that we really run the risk of doing something like that?
No, it's just the opposite. In fact, we have to say he's our speaker. And just like other communities have calls on their elected officials, our speaker, we have expectations of our speaker. We will not be taken for granted. And in too many instances, we step back because we have to look at the big picture. Well, in my house, we're the big picture. And in our communities, we're the big picture. And so we have to say loudly and publicly, touch not him. We're with him. And there will be consequences if you fail and disappoint us. And so I understand and it's sympathetic to the point of view, but the fact of the matter is, when the PBA had their mini riot downtown with 10,000 people calling the mayor of the city of New York
a washroom attendant
and a crackhead.
And that was David Dinkins, and I was there.
Okay.
I reported on that.
And so what I'm saying is, if anything, we should have then stormed PBA headquarters and said things. So the question is, no, I'm just the opposite. We need to double down on this speaker so that we have some results that we can bring home to our children.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say this. I was going to switch gears a little bit. I know this is not. I mean, you're primarily at this point a large part an advocate for MWBEs and for small businesses and for minorities, inclusion versus too. Obviously, criminal justice reform is a huge issue as well, and that's a huge issue for the community. And I think that in a way those go hand in hand. So I was wondering your thoughts on the what played out essentially in December, obviously with the grand jury not indicting Garrett Garner, followed by obviously the tragic shooting of 2 officers, and just in general how the black community and how minority communities are seeing the police and mayor relationship.
There's a great concern
Yep.
that in the reconciliation between the mayor and the NYPD, first of all, the notion of a reconciliation being necessary, he's the boss.
Yep.
He got elected. And if 100 people who work for me stand up and embarrass me, then they don't work for me anymore.
We're fired.
Okay? And so what I'm saying is, in our community, we're kind of saying we're going to try to go with you on this diplomatic thing, okay? But the reality is that they've got to prove something to us. You know, the whole notion, there are little whispers and innuendos that are offensive. You know, Okai Gurley, well, the officer, you know, it was a dangerous neighborhood. So, you know, why didn't he just take the gun out and shoot himself? Because the policeman was afraid. The policeman who had a badge and a gun, and another person who had a badge and a gun. And it's insulting to say like, well, you know, we have to wait for the investigation to hear the results to see whether this nervous rookie policeman. But excuse me, the night of the shooting, within a half hour of the shooting, the police commissioner came to the scene and said it was an accident. How did he know that? And so, to answer your question, Michael, the community is being patient because we want this mayor to succeed. But those of us who've seen this movie before are watching and waiting and saying at the same time we're going to be watching that PBA contract to make sure you don't give away the store.
And not to put words in your mouth, but I get the sense that there's concern that the mayor is weak on this issue in many ways, and that maybe you say he's taking the diplomatic route, but maybe he's, you know, also doing what a lot of mayors previous to them have been kind of gotten scared when it comes to having to stand up to what might be criminal or police misconduct and things like that.
Look, at the end of the day, this is not about criminal justice, it's about business.
Yep.
And the business community says when the police are upset, then we get upset because then the climate for doing business, the tourism, the finance, all of that gets threatened, and so we're upset. So we understand that it's about money.
Gotcha.
We want a safe city. We want a safe city in all 5 boroughs, uptown and downtown. And so don't make it. The media, mainstream media, tries to make it appear as if we're just more concerned about letting them out. No, we want laws, we want justice, but we want the laws equally applied.
Gotcha.
In the particular case you just mentioned, the Gurney case, it's interesting because I heard Pat Lynch say, and that's the president of the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association in New York City, and representing most of the force of the NYPD, the police officers, men and women, really great men and women. But he said that this officer, who was accused now by the DA of Brooklyn, and finally had the guts. If it would have been Joe Hines, this officer would have walked. I dare say that. But he said, we need to give the officer an opportunity. I said, well, that's what everybody's been asking. You just bring him to justice and let the law take its course. Nobody was accusing him and making him guilty, but you know, for the law to apply to police officers when there is an allegation against them, just like if it would be one of us that is accused of something. And so they seem to be getting it, but they're sending a different message, which I'm glad that you spoke to, and it's part of it. I ask you one more question with regards, and I'm bringing you to the question because you've been in city politics, you know politics well, you know the players. Are we making a mistake with Mayor de Blasio of assuming that he really is sensitive to the issues of blacks and Latinos and Asians, people of color, minorities, just because he's married to a black woman? And I ask you that, you don't have to answer that. I'm asking you the rough questions because I know the Reverend Jacques DeGraff, I know that you'll put it in the context. I'm already hearing people say, well, bottom line, he's still a white guy in power.
Well, first of all, you know, love is the most powerful force on earth, and I believe that he genuinely loves his wife, and I know that she loves him, and it's obvious when you're in their presence. And I don't see it as a political manipulation as some have accused it of him having been. Having said that, I've been concerned that his administration is still bogged down with the inertia of the 20 years that preceded him, and doesn't function with the sense of urgency that some of us would expect. So we've heard about horse-drawn carriages, we've heard about a variety of things, but we haven't heard about MWBEs. We passed a law in 2013, and billions of dollars have walked out of the door as the city hits 4% of its spend in the MWBE community. To me, that's the issue. What's in his heart? I believe he has a good heart, but the actions haven't matched the words at this point. And so what I'm saying is, I know you're a good person. I believe in you, and our community supported you. So our expectations need to match your production. And we believe that there have been well-intentioned, misdirected use of resources, and we're hopeful that in the weeks ahead that we can talk to him and bring him around to that point of view.
So the talk is good, but the walk, he's got to walk it.
The walk he's got to be walked.
Reverend DeGraff, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for swinging by, and enjoy the Caucus Weekend.
Godspeed.